First, let me ask you this. For the audience that's listening and for the New York 9 voters that have not seen you yet, as a businessman and a non-politician with no desire to become a career politician, what motivated you to run for this office?
Well, Jacob, I am just fed up and sick and tired of the direction this country has been taking. For me, when I entered this new career about 18 months ago, it was Obamacare that, to me, was one of the final straws. There have been a lot more since then. But I think I had to stand up and do something. And I had hoped I could just write a check to some candidate who would carry the ball. But when I discovered there was none, it seemed to be incumbent on me to put my money where my mouth was and do what had to be done.
So you say money talks, but it doesn't walk.
So I came into this through the Conservative Party because the only person I really knew in politics was a neighbor and friend, and who happened to be the state chairman of the Conservative Party, Mike Long. So I asked Mike, who was going to carry the fight against Anthony Weiner, and before the conversation was over, it was me.
So you actually got like 41% of the vote that time, that made you a favorite to run this time, and we hope that you carry out the other 10%.
Well, yes. My first campaign was with the support of a lot of people who were never in the political process before. It was entirely grassroots. It was all from the district. We had no help from the state or national committees, no PACs, no real help anywhere. We had to figure it out ourselves. It was an amateur campaign, but smart people, and we put a credible campaign together where we made Mr. Weiner break a sweat before this was over. He wound up outspending us 5 or 6 to 1, and they had to put a good deal of resources into this race to ensure his victory. So this time, I think we have a lot more help and a lot more experience, and a lot of the things that propelled us forward have gotten a lot worse. The policies and issues of this administration and the direction of the country. So I see far more support and a lot more interest, and we're getting confident we can and will win this.
Congress, as you know, is a national job. It's not such of a local job as city council or assemblyman. From meeting the voters, listening to their concerns, and exploring the districts over the past few weeks, what would you say would be your priorities once you get elected into office?
It is everyone's concern, no matter where I go, if it's a small shop owner or someone working in Manhattan for a bank or wherever I go in this district, it is jobs and the economy. People are concerned about keeping their job. They understand how bad business is. Everything is off. There's a sense of pessimism and gloom, largely because of a lack of leadership and direction coming out of Washington. What I hope to do on a national level that will impact this area is to help implement practical, business-like policies in Washington that will improve the business climate, help restore confidence, and maybe propose and vote on some projects and policies that will stimulate the economy in a real way, getting businesses to invest and start new operations and invest in plant and equipment and things that will bring people to work, back to work, and restore some prosperity. So that's, I think, the angle I will be approaching, and that's the kind of programs that I hope to get behind and lend my voice to.
Let's turn to a burning issue in the Jewish community in particular, and that's Ed Koch's endorsement mentioning one of the reasons was sending a message to Obama on his treatment of Israel and a referendum on his Middle East policies. Now, as we know, your opponent, David Weprin, has claimed, and we have no doubt about that he's also very pro-Israel. What is the message to the voters? Why prefer Bob Turner over Jewish Democrat David Weprin in this regard?
Well, I think the issues are far bigger than Mr. Weprin or myself. The Obama administration has been the least friendly to Israel, breaking a very long tradition of the policies of every American president going back to Harry Truman. His snub and treatment of Prime Minister Netanyahu has not been forgotten. Our support of the Palestinians in aid and foreign aid it seems to be without any condition. They're still attacking Israel from these Palestinian sanctuaries. We have the latest insult, the suggestion that the Israelis apologize to the Turks for the Turks supplying this flotilla, which was a deliberate provocation and violation of known international law. We can't allow this to continue. I think many of the voters here are saying our votes have been taken for granted. Mr. Obama can assume that the Jewish vote particularly is his. He's a Democrat. He'll behave as he sees fit, and you'll like it. If, on the other hand, this very Democratic district with a very heavy Jewish population turns on him and turns Republican, I think this will send a resounding message that this vote not only cannot be taken for granted, but he may have to change his policies if he wishes to stay in power. That same lesson will be applied to every Democratic senator and House member, that if those policies are followed, they can go down to defeat. And there's nothing more they want to do than keep their jobs. So Mr. Weprin cannot provide that type of threat. If he's elected, it's business as usual. Mr. Obama's assumptions would be correct. He can't take this district for granted. There are no consequences for his behavior. That's pretty strong language, but that's exactly the reality as I see it.
Now, Israel has been always in the Congress a bipartisan issue. However, I assume that you have some advantage. If elected, you'll be part of the Republican majority that has been, even according to AIPAC, more friendlier and supportive of Israel. What bills would you sponsor or co-sponsor that will, in your view, strengthen the security of the State of Israel and preserve the strong U.S.-Israel relationship?
Well, at this point, at this critical point, and particularly in light of some of the diplomatic damage that has been done over the past year, particularly, moving our own embassy, the American embassy, into Jerusalem would go a very long way in sending a clear message to the entire Middle East of where America's intentions and where their heart is. But it would help quickly improve relations between Israel and the United States. This, by the way, this bill has quite a number of co-sponsors and has been sitting in committee a very long time. I think we just need some more voices to add to it. That's just one thing. Right now, we are giving foreign aid to a number of countries that are voting against our interests and against Israeli interests in the UN. I think there should be some link to that aid and their behavior. I think bad behavior should have some consequences, and how we dispense foreign aid would be a good starting point. How we fund the United Nations and their hostility to the United States and Israel shouldn't be rewarded. I think these are the kind of things a congressman can do and help lend support to.
So you would support the bill the House Foreign Affairs Committee introduced to Congress to block U.S. funds for any United Nations entity that supports giving the Palestinians an elevated status at the UN?
That would be a good start, and as well as the behavior at this upcoming Durban conference. I think it's time we stop ignoring and continuing to reward hostile behavior.
Let's turn to Iran. Do you believe that a nuclear Iran is an international issue that has to be solved by the international community? And would you support increasing pressure on Iran by issuing, as Israel proposes, a credible military threat to Iran if it does not halt advancing its nuclear program?
Yes, sanctions have been weak and tepid, and I don't think sanctions alone are going to do this. We have to have more aggressive means to help destabilize this regime. It is my opinion and others' opinions that regime is not operating at the will of the people. It is suppressive. There are forces at work in Iran that are resisting this. I would like to see the United States actively support those efforts through aid through information technology. We should be assaulting them on the internet with ideas promoting democracy and individual freedom, and standing up for what we believe in. Not only there, but elsewhere in the Muslim world.
David, I know you have a question for Bob. David?
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Hello, David. How are you?
Good. Let me just say that I'm very excited that you're the candidate again. I remember last time, the day before the election, I was on Russian TV and I was making a plea to people on your behalf. You didn't even know about it. But my basic argument was, here's a good guy and here's Wiener who's a bad guy. And it's been proven which one of you is worthy to be a congressional candidate. And in this race, I also think you are clearly and easily by a wide margin the better candidate. But I have a question for you as one business owner to another. For myself and for a lot of other businessmen, this has been the worst year in many, many years, for some of us in decades. Every single small businessman that I've spoken to says that this is a very bad year in a horrible environment, and a lot of it is caused by our government. As the next congressman, what legislation would you support to make it easier for small businesses to survive and to hire more people and to resolve our unemployment and economic problems?
Well, I think the American entrepreneurial spirit is there. It is being partly strangled with a tax structure and regulations that are harming their usual vitality and growth. There are a number of things that the government can do, and it is largely just getting out of the way. For small businesses, the Obamacare, its restrictions on and its imposition and cost is a burden to a lot of small businesses. The Dodd-Frank bill, particularly here in New York, is hampering the flow of credit and mortgages and business loans. I think this has been a serious mistake, and one that has to be revisited soon to help free up small business opportunities. Additionally, on a larger scale, on returning the entire country to prosperity. I mean, there are things we can do quickly in energy that will be the most impactful, in gas exploration, oil exploration domestically. There are things we can do in promoting businesses to take vast amounts of cash off their balance sheets and repatriate cash also from offshore to be put to use quickly in plant and development. Right here in America, with tax credits and other things, investment credits, and finally the regulatory area. I hope we can repeal Obamacare. I hope we can very greatly redo the Dodd-Frank bill. I don't think people fully realize how negative this is, as jobs in New York particularly will be moving to London and Toronto. This bill is just fraught with unintended consequences, all of which are negative. And the intended consequences, which is to help the consumer and protect the consumer, is doing quite the opposite.
Thank you.
Finally,
I agree with you completely.
Yeah. finally, if you can tell the audience, those listening to the show, and to the voters in the New York 9th District, why is it so important to go out to vote next Tuesday, September 13th, and why vote for Bob Turner?
Well, this special election will have more of an impact than most elections that we will deal with in a long time. Right now, we are at a crossroads. We have the House is in a Republican majority. The Senate is still controlled by the Democrats. The White House, of course, is controlled by this administration. There are many policies that will be applied next year. Not only the policies, but new laws and how we go after existing laws. A Democratic win here will probably mean business as usual. I think it will only embolden the president to continue on his course and see how we ride it out a year from November. A loss here, on the other hand, will send shockwaves through the Democratic Party. I don't believe they can, sitting congressmen, Democratic congressmen, and sitting senators will say we can follow these policies and still keep our own jobs next November. I think they will bail on him, on the president and his policies. I think the president will have to moderate and even change many of the things he's doing with a loss here, with an election of a Republican in a district that is solidly Democratic. And we can do it. We have our ear to the ground. We're listening. We're polling. And the voters are ready. They're going to turn. We have to get them out to vote. Indications are, with a lot of hard work, we can do it. I urge you who think that this is hopeless, that you're just one voice, can't be done. Well, it can be done. If I could get off my sofa and stop futilely yelling at the TV set and to say, I'm going to do something about this, and I am, you can do the same. Get up, vote. Let's do this together. We can change things.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming onto the program, and I hope to have you on very shortly as the elected congressman of the New York 9th District.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Jacob.
God bless you, and good luck.
Thank you. Good night.
This was Bob Turner, the Republican candidate for New York 9th District special election, coming up in only 7 days, next Tuesday, September 13th. We'll be right back